would go get on my bicycle and I would ride around town, work up a real sweat. I was exercising very hard. I didn't lose any weight. That was giving up. I thought the correct thing to do is to eat healthy food and exercise. And if I'm still not going to lose weight, then I guess this is just how I'm going to be forever. I got fat. I'm going to stay fat. And there's nothing I can do about it because I ate healthy food and I exercised and nothing happened. Have you ever felt like everyone else is wrong and you're the only one who sees what's going on? And no matter how much you try to convince other people, you can never figure out the right combination of words to say to make people see things your way. And you're so confident that you're right that it starts to drive you a little crazy. Well, that's kind of where I'm at with food. People are really attached to their own ideas about food, and I'm no exception to that, obviously. That's the reason this is so frustrating. If you're a modern person who grew up in a Western culture, or even probably an Eastern culture, I don't know how they do things over there. But speaking from my own perspective as an American, I was raised on a lot of shit food. And the habits I built in childhood, the values that were instilled into me are irrevocable, it seems. I'm doing my best here to try to go against the grain and do things properly, but it's very difficult to be a radical in a world that is so set in its ways. And the issue of food is so fundamental to life that attacking that, trying to make a change in that aspect of life, inevitably leads to people feeling threatened. And when people are threatened, they get defensive. And when people are defensive, it's nearly impossible to change their mind. My mind about food was changed only when I hit a low point, basically. I felt so bad about myself and finally happened upon the right information that I was able to take that and implement some changes. So overall, what am I talking about? I'm talking about eating good food and not being fat anymore. Being fat sucks. I'm not going to pretend that I was ever morbidly obese, but I was fat and it sucked. I hated it. If you're watching this video, I'm hoping it's because you're trying to lose weight. I would love to help you. I would love to help you. You, right there, you. I would love to help you lose weight. It's not that hard, it turns out, but you have to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Not necessarily in a scientific way, but psychologically, I think that's more important. And even if you're not fat, maybe you used to be, and maybe you need some motivation to continue to not be fat, and hopefully I can help with that as well. So I'm playing this video game right now, and I grew up playing video games and eating junk food, and it's a great way to get fat, I tell you. As I'm playing this, I'm feeling very hungry. I have not yet eaten today. I've been up for a couple hours, and I just weighed in. I like to weigh in when I wake up, so I'm, being consistent every day. And I weighed in at 147.7 pounds. At my heaviest, I was, so the heaviest I ever weighed in, the heaviest I ever saw on the scale was 196 pounds. It would not surprise me at all if I happened to go above 200 pounds, but when I saw 196 one time, I just stopped weighing myself. I thought, you know what? It would really shatter my world if I hit 200 pounds. So I'm just not going to look anymore, basically. And I think a lot of people are in that place where they don't like how they are, they don't like how they feel, and when they see evidence that things are getting worse, it psychologically ruins them. And so you go into denial. And a person in denial can't be helped because they don't even admit that there's a problem, or that they're too afraid to confront the problem, or maybe they're just approaching the problem in the wrong way. For example, myself, hello. My problem was that I was too fat and I didn't like how I felt. I felt uncomfortable in any situation, including when I was all alone, which is really sad. Obviously, I felt self-conscious when I was being observed by other people. I didn't like the way my double chin looked. I didn't like the way my clothes fit me. I could feel my clothes rubbing on my fat rolls. I could feel them hugging my love handles, my lovely love handles. And I didn't like how chairs would creak when I would sit on them. I didn't like how when I would bend over, I was always afraid that my butt crack was going to show because it was showing. It made me adopt a lot of avoidant behavior where I would basically just become a shut-in and never do anything. Anyway, okay, let me get back on track. I saw 196 pounds on the scale, and I said, whoa, buddy, this is getting out of hand. I was a hefty boy. So what did I do about that? Well, everyone knows that if you are too fat, then it's your fault, and you need to control yourself better. You need to eat less and move more. You need to diet and exercise, right? So that's what I did. I got some healthy food. From the grocery store, and I cooked it up and I ate it and I exercised. What did I get? I got some rice and some chicken breast, low fat meat. I got some vegetables of all kinds of varieties. I was getting, peppers and tomatoes and onions and broccoli, lots and lots of broccoli. So much broccoli. And I would cook it up in a giant pot. I was not and am not a good cook. I have always just kind of wang it in the kitchen. I just get in there and I go, okay, let's just invent a new thing. I've never been one to follow recipes. So what did I do? I got a big pot and I cooked up all the rice, like several pounds of rice. I don't know. It was a lot of rice. And then I threw the vegetables in there and put the meat in there and I just boiled it. I boiled, and I came out of it with a giant pot of mush, basically. But I thought to myself, aha, this is healthy food. This is health mush. So I should just eat this and be happy with it. And the rice was undercooked or overcooked. I tried this several times. I could never get it right because obviously if you just throw all the ingredients in a pot and cook it, it's going to either turn out undercooked or it's going to turn out to be mush. Something is not going to be right. But I did that and I ate my rice and vegetable mush, and then I would go get on my bicycle and I would ride around town, work up a real sweat. I was exercising very hard, and I kept doing this for, I don't know, a couple weeks, and I didn't lose any weight. And that was me giving up. I thought that was the correct thing to do, is to eat healthy food and exercise. And if I'm still not going to lose weight, then I guess this is just how I'm going to be forever. For whatever reason, I got fat, and for whatever reason, I'm going to stay fat. And there's nothing I can do about it because I did it right. I ate healthy food and I exercised, and nothing happened. So obviously at that point, I just gave up and I just decided I'm just going to eat whatever I want, however much I want, and it's going to be fine. And this is just the way it's going to be. I'm just always going to be a nervous, self-conscious person. I'm never going to have the confidence to build relationships. I'm always going to be a shut-in, and I better just adjust to this life, and I better play my video games and never do anything. And then I don't know how this happened. I think I saw an advertisement for this new meal replacement called Soylent, and it seemed to me, oh, you know what? I was reading like cracked.com. I used to read that stupid website, and they have all these articles that are interesting, and they're trying to be so funny the way they write about things. This is very antiquated at this point, but back in the day, that's what I liked to do. One of the things I liked to do on my computer was read cracked.com. So anyway, I think this is how it went. I was reading cracked.com, and I saw them write about this new product called Soylent, and I guess it was some article about interesting food or whatever, but the idea was that this nerd found himself in the position of researching what foods are essential for life, what compounds, what molecules. And because he wanted to be as efficient as possible, he decided, I'm not going to eat food to get these. I'm going to just get the raw ingredients, the nutrients one needs to live, and I'm going to simply make myself a shake that that has all the ingredients that I need to live. And that's going to like save me time, and it's going to optimize my nutrition. And I saw that and I thought, well, there you go. There's the solution to my food problem, because now it takes all the guesswork out of eating, and I don't have to try to eat healthy and hope I'm doing it right. It's just this nerd did all the work for me, and I can just drink his Soylent shake. And it was named Soylent as a joke after the movie Soylent Green. That's neither here nor there, but that was kind of funny to me in a macabre sort of way, because in the movie it's people. Soylent Green is people. Everyone eats this food product called Soylent Green, and it turns out it's people. But anyway, this guy makes this drink called Soylent, and I looked it up, and I was very excited about it for a minute there, and it turns out it's in pre-production, and you can pre-order it. And I looked at the pre-order, and it was something like, I don't know, it was like, I can't even remember the dollar amount, but it was too expensive for me. I could not afford it. I had no real income at the time, and so to order this shake, very expensive shake, I can't even remember what it cost. But anyway, the point is, it was too expensive, and I started looking into alternatives, and it turned out there was a website for it, and there was a forum, and there were DIY Soylent recipes, and you could make your own Soylent. And I thought, oh, thank God, I can just buy the ingredients myself and make my own. Anyway, where I'm going with this is on that Soylent forum with all the DIY Soylent recipes, there was one called Keto Soylent. And that was a strange looking word. I had never heard the word keto before. And so I clicked on that one, and it looked like a fairly simple recipe. And I started reading the comments in that thread, and one of them mentioned the documentary Fathead. And so I said, okay, what the hell is Fathead? I looked that up, and I watched that, and suddenly I began to understand what was going on with food. That documentary changed my life, because finally someone explained that you don't have to eat chicken and rice and vegetables to lose weight. And in fact, if you eat chicken and rice, you're not going to lose weight because of what carbs are, because of what carbs do when we eat them. You can't lose weight when you're eating carbs. The only way is to stop eating carbs. Okay, so that was a long story, and the topic was supposed to be changing people's minds. Well, that's my story of how my mind finally got changed. It was a combination of feeling ashamed of myself, feeling unsure of what to do, giving up hope, and then stumbling across the right information, finally, in a package that was digestible to me, which was a documentary made by a sarcastic, acerbic computer nerd.
Boy, I really should count my calories and lose some weight, but I'd have to walk all the way over there. Heck with it.
And that is what finally worked for me. But that's not going to work for everybody, because that was just a series of events that I stumbled upon. I'm just realizing that's not the full story. There were so many other events. There was this whole chain of events that led to me finally unlocking the secrets of how to lose weight. It's really crazy. We all have our own story, and you can think back and go, that moment is, I can pinpoint that as the moment that I realized, or the moment that set things in motion to where you finally make a change in your life. Everyone needs to find that moment, and it's really hard. I would love to be able to convince everyone of the things that I believe, the things that I know would help, but it's just so hard to find people who are ready to hear the information. In my daily life, I interact with people who are obese and sick all the time, including people in my own family, and you would think that they saw me before and they saw me after, and they would want to hear all about how I did it and how they can do it too, and it's not difficult. And I've tried to explain it, and I like to drop little hints occasionally in conversation when it's appropriate. I remember a guy came up to me. I was in a store, and he asked me a question, and I answered it, and then he made this was an older guy, and he made some comment, something like, It was so weird. He just suddenly said, like, I wish I was as skinny as you, or something like that. This was an overweight gentleman who looked about 60 years old, I would say. And I thought, well, here's my chance to help somebody. So all I said was, well, the secret is to eat only meat. And he looked at me, and it looked like he was slightly confused and amused, and he laughed. And then I just said, have a great day. And then we walked away from each other. And I'm hoping that planted a seed. I hope he was curious about that, and I hope he Googled it or asked somebody other than his doctor about that, because obviously if he asks his doctor, they're probably going to say no. They're probably going to say, no, you need to eat a balanced diet with plenty of whole grains. But that's the kind of thing. It's like, it wouldn't have been appropriate for me to go into it deeper with that guy, to tell him everything. But I did what I could in that moment. I thought that was the most effective thing, was just to be blunt and say, that's how you do it, and have a great day, and not try to be funny about it. Just say, hey, the way to lose weight, if you want to be skinny like me, just eat only meat. There you go. Have a great day. I hope that was effective for that guy, because he looked like he had a giant belly. He wasn't huge, but obviously the fact that he even brought that up with a stranger was crazy to me. But he brought it up, so maybe he was open to it. I don't know. So if you've made it this far, if you've listened to me for this long, have you had any experience with convincing people? I'd love to hear about what worked for you. I've tried so hard to convince my mom. She could stand to lose a little weight, and I think she would feel better, and it might help her arthritis if she fixed her diet. But she just is, she's much older than me, and so she's had a longer life, a longer time being exposed to the wrong information, and she listens to her doctor because, of course, you're supposed to listen to your doctor. Doctors know everything. But it's so heartbreaking to think that, she would not be convinced by my experience. You would think she would see the change that I've made, and she would hear me speak about it in a good way, and I'm happy about what happened, and I figured it out, and I'm so proud of what I've accomplished. And the issue with her is that she never saw me as fat before. She was the one who was constantly encouraging me to eat more. I would eat really fast, and then she would say, oh, you didn't get enough. You want to get something else. And she thought I was too skinny as a child. I don't know where she got that idea. Maybe it's a generational thing, but I was perfectly healthy as a child, and then I became too fat as a teenager. And it took me a good 15 years to figure that out and get back on track. And now I'll never be fat again, because if I ever lose weight, if I ever gain weight, when I gain weight, it does happen. I know how to fix it, and I just do. I'm doing that right now. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I weighed in at 147. Most people in America would probably think that is dangerously skinny for a man. It's not. I'm totally fine. I don't know. It's just, how are we going to convince people? I don't think it's effective to bombard people with scientific knowledge, the scientific explanation. And I don't think it's helpful to explain to people the optimal way to eat and tell people absolutely don't do this, only do this. I think that is off-putting for someone in a low place, someone who is hesitant to make a change, someone who is afraid of failure. To load them up with too much expectation is not helpful. So we need to figure out a way to deliver the message in a way that works for more people. I guess that's why I've started this YouTube channel. I just think most of what I see out there is not effective, or would not have been effective for me. Every time someone tries to optimize, it seems like they are setting up a new barrier for entry. I'm more of a just try it, just go for it. You don't have to be the best kind of person. The point is you need to get started. Getting started is always the hardest part of a project, and self-improvement could be seen as a project. Getting started is the hardest part, and staying motivated is the second hardest part. You need to get reinforcement to maintain motivation. You need to constantly be reinvigorated, reassured. You need to know that what you're doing is leading somewhere. With a diet, obviously, people take pictures of themselves in the mirror That's a good way to go. But the issue with that I find is that at a certain point, I guess once you've accomplished your goal in weight loss, then you start feeling comfortable again. And it doesn't feel like such a big deal. You don't feel like you have to stick to your diet so strictly anymore because you've already accomplished your goal. You feel great about it. And now you want to celebrate. But that's why people end up gaining the weight back. And myself included, I'm not perfect. I gain weight all the time because I love eating addictive junk food. But anyway, once you get comfortable, then you start, relapsing. And it takes a while. Gaining weight is not that fast. You can lose it a lot faster than you gain it, I find. And so it's easy to get into bad habits again and not see any consequences. And then now you're back where you started. Hopefully not, but that's the case for a lot of people. But you need constant reinforcement. I call it brainwashing. You need to brainwash yourself. You need to expose yourself to good influences. You need to see progress. For me, that's weighing myself at the same time every day and seeing the number hopefully go down on the scale. For me, that's also consuming content on YouTube of people who are talking about nutrition, reminding myself of all the 1,000 reasons that it's good to have a good diet, not only for weight loss, but for overall health and, prevention of cancer, things like that. I'm convinced, and, I don't have the full understanding of the topic and I don't have the background in science to have a full understanding, but based on what I see in here, I'm convinced that eating a proper diet will eliminate most, if not all, chronic disease. And so reminding myself of that all the time helps me stay on track. So that's one thing that works for me. I recommend it to other people because I can only speak from my own experiences. And to me, that seems like a very effective way to go. But yeah, that's for me after I hit my goal weight. Like I'm at 147. I could lose another 10 pounds. I've been as low as 138 at my lightest. That was quite skinny, I will say. But I'm pretty content with the size I am now. I have all this residual loose skin and fat deposits from when I was more overweight. And that bugs me, but it's not a super huge deal. But I would like to maintain a lower weight for longer in the hopes that my body will, retract and things will go back to how they ought to be. And even if they don't, I'm okay. I'm doing very well. But the point is you get comfortable, and I'm pretty comfortable right now. Yet every day I'm still listening to weight loss tips and people speaking about their experiences of being fat and losing the weight. And it's helping to remind me that this is important. This is something I do believe. It's something I need to do. And I know I'm being realistic. Eventually, I'm going to fall out of this habit of constant vigilance and I'm going to relapse and I'm going to gain more weight. I've done this 20 times and then I'll have to find it again and lose the weight again. And that's just kind of how it goes in this landscape, in this society. If I had more people around me who were doing the same thing I'm doing, it's possible I might be able to maintain it for life, but it is so difficult when everyone out there is against me, They either don't want to hear about it, so I can't talk about it, so it can't be a fixture of my life socially, or they're openly hostile to the idea. Like I just had dinner with family last night and I ate the meat and I begrudgingly ate a little bit of potatoes, even though I really didn't want to, just because I was trying to avoid being attacked for my dietary choices. And it's so insane, by the way, that you can eat potatoes with your meat and everybody's okay with that. And it's just like, well, I guess he just wanted meat and potatoes. But if you eat just the meat without the potatoes, now you're being weird. You know what I mean? That's just something crazy. People are so weird about food. You could eat your meat and one bite of broccoli and people wouldn't think you're being weird. But if you eat just the meat and no broccoli, now you're being weird. It's so ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, people, I ended up getting called out anyway because I refused dessert. Somebody brought a couple of really nice looking desserts, brownies and ice cream and something else. I don't remember. I didn't even look at them. but I said, no dessert for me, thanks. And, the question was, or the response was not, okay, or, oh, you're missing out. The response was, and why not? And, I just had to say, well, I've had a lot of experience and done a lot of research with food. And at the moment, I'm trying to do what I think is right for myself and my health. And I believe that eating dessert would go against, what I believe is right. And then I felt the need to throw in, and by the way, 3 weeks ago, I was not eating healthy. I would have eaten it a month ago, but right now, this is what I'm doing. And shock and awe, nobody seemed to be satisfied with that explanation. But, they let me get away with it. I did not eat the dessert. I got some eye rolls. And what's frustrating to me is no one's curious. No one wants to know more about that. No one wants to get my thoughts on that or hear specifics about what not to eat or blah, 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 blah. And I get it, because when I was insecure and overweight, I didn't want to hear people tell me the solution either. I think people don't want to hear the information for several reasons. One is that once they get the right information, now the onus is on them to fix the problem. If they don't know what the solution is, they can comfortably glide along and not have to feel too bad about not knowing how to fix it. But if they know how to fix it and they choose not to, well, now they failed. Fear of failure it was a big deal for me. Like I said, it was a big part of not making changes. Is I felt stuck. I felt like there was no way I could do it. But another thing that people, they don't want to hear the information is because they have fatigue from all the other things they've heard in their life. And this is especially true, I think, for older people, because they've been there, done that. They were alive for the Atkins diet and the low fat craze and all the other things throughout the decades. And science tells us that this is good for you and now it's bad for you. And they're so fatigued from too much information that was all wrong. Nothing ever worked for them when they tried things in the past, because they had the wrong information, of course. And so they're just done, and they gave up. I guess that's what I'm getting at. People just gave up. And, like I said, I was in that spot too, until I happened to find the right information at the right time. And I was ready to change, and I tried it, and it worked. The point is, it worked immediately. I did keto because I found the keto Soylent, and I found Fathead, and I was like, oh, Fathead is this is keto. It's low carb. And it just clicked, and the next day, I just ate salmon and bacon. That was it. And lo and behold, the next day, I was lighter. And I did it again, salmon and bacon again. And I was lighter again the next day. And I thought, thank fucking God. Finally, something works. And I know it works because I just tried it. This is true. Okay, I got this. But most people don't have that experience. They have I guess it was a combination of practical experience where I did it and it worked, but also that there was an explanation for why it worked. I guess that's the key, because most people will diet and they'll restrict their calories, but restricting calories and thinking, well, if I eat less food, then I won't gain weight or I'll lose weight. That's like, the explanation is not complete. It doesn't really get into cause and effect. It's too general, I guess, is the idea. The low carb thing is very specific, but you don't necessarily have to understand the entire mechanism of how it works, but you can pinpoint, this is the type of food that causes weight gain, therefore avoid it and you lose weight. That's just, it's very simple and to the point. And I talked about, older people being fatigued because they've seen it all before and they've tried it and nothing worked. But like one of my family members is an older person, and they tried the Atkins diet a long time ago, which is essentially, as I understand it, a low carb diet, and it worked and they lost weight. And then for some reason it didn't stick with them, and they ended up just going back to eating, treats and sweets all the time. I don't really get how that works and how they can't remember what worked and how to replicate that result again. It's not that hard, right? I mean, if you just eat enough food and don't eat the bad stuff, then and should be easy to replicate. But that person is still struggling with their weight to this day and is embarrassed about it and seems like they can't make any change. And it's just baffling to me. Like if you did it before and it worked and you understood the mechanism there was the carbohydrates, then why can't you do it again? I don't know. So help me out here. Leave a comment with your experience with convincing people. What convinced you? I guess that would be the most obvious thing to start with. I've given, an overview of my story and what convinced me. I'd love to hear about what convinced you. We can all draw from each other's experiences and hopefully get to a point where we can be more convincing to other people, or we can look out for signs that people are ready to be convinced and then go from there. Anyway, let me know what you think. Did anything I say resonate with you? I'd love to know that I'm making a difference, or at least reaffirming people's beliefs in these good ideas, because that's, like I said, that's what I need. I need constant reassurance. I need constant reminding of why I'm doing this, because it's crazy out there with the grocery store. This is another topic, but I was thinking today, the grocery store as a concept, the supermarket, is a fairly new thing, and it's only because all these processed foods came out. Before the processed foods, all you needed was a farmer's market and a butcher, because that was food. And the only reason a grocery store as like this giant building with all these aisles, the only reason that exists is because every single aisle is covered in, is filled with processed foods. That's another topic for another day. Anyway, let me know what you think. Did anything I say resonate with you? Give me your ideas on how to convince people. Please go ahead and like and subscribe the video. I hate to have to say that, but if you've made it this far, this is the end of the video. You should probably like and subscribe. I'm going to post more. And every time you like and every time you subscribe, I get a little more reinforcement and motivation that will help me to speak more on this topic, which I would really, really love to do. I've been thinking about this. I've been accumulating ideas for a long time. So just help me out. Give me that little nudge that I need to keep going. And let's just all keep getting better all the time. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.